spirit speaking, truth seeking, heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of meager means. I have yet to leave, I'm still breathing. To quit, I have no reason. I mean, I'm asleep, but I be trying to live my dream. I cannot even act if it's all easy. Either you gon' do it or you don't. Really, it ain't no in between. Baby, you can ask the sun. It's an everyday thing. Consistency in your routine is how you bring reality. Working like a slave, that's how I made this masterpiece. Living like a god, I lay at night, I rest in peace. They remember me, but I am not Haram or beef.
Peace, 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 peace. Peace, love, and light, nobles, empresses, family, friends. Happy Holy Friday. Get a little background music from our noble, Brian Hicks Bay. Been rocking this Transportation of Raw Materials album.
A hug, no love like self-love. I'm an aboriginal, not a settler. So what the fuck I wanna settle for? My soul was broken, I fixed it up. So what the fuck I wanna sell it for? Really, I just wanna better us. Me, myself, and I, we about to fly up into another pinnacle. It's nothing short of a miracle. I used to just wanna get rich as fuck. Now I just try to keep my spirits up. I say to myself in the mirror, you's a phenomenal nigga. I keep on repeating my mantra. I roll on my weed in the switch. I don't know if it's the pose or the portrait, but this is the perfectest picture. I see myself molding and morphing. I guess it's just life, go figure. Wish I could go show Philip, cause Lord sure knows I miss him. But we gon' live forever, so that there don't make no difference. You fucking right. You fucking right. I can't love nobody till I love myself. I can love anybody once I love myself. I don't love everybody, yet I love myself. I love I can't be nobody else because I love I hope you love you. You say you love I love you too. See, I love I hope you love you. You say you love I love you too. See, me is my woman, myself is myself, and I as my seed. I live by my word is only as good as my deed. Look at the past and strangers watching me bleed. Imprison myself, nah, I cannot see. How can that be? Tell me, who has helped me place this blindfold? Keeping my mind closed and my ears now open to them stories that time told forever and over again. Cause of within, when without and in doubt, love nobody till I love myself. I can love anybody once I love myself. I don't love everybody, yet I love myself. I love I can't be nobody else because I love I hope you love you. You say you love I love you too. See, I love I hope you love you. You say you love I love you too. You fucking right. You fucking right. You fucking right. You fucking right.
Peace, 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 peace. Again, that's some timeless music from our noble minister, Brian Hicks Bay, BHB Music on all platforms. Check them out. Very inspirational wisdom. He puts all the more science into the lyrics. And it's soulful. Like that song says. You can't love nobody unless you love yourself. And that's what Moorish science has taught us and teaches. This is why Noble Drew Ali, Deuce Muhammad, so many other elders, Sufis, sheiks have taught us these lessons. This is about the uniting of Asia. That's what Moorish science is about. As we know, at one point the world was only called Asia, Pangea. This is why many groups understand the term Asiatic. And we have so many terms that we go by and have called ourselves over the decades. Black, colored, Negro, Afro-American. But do these things truly describe who we are, where we come from, our nobility, our lineage? You know, we have to answer these serious questions. Peace and love, Sheik. You know, Sheik had a great discussion last night talking about how law governs all events, which is a great book of study. Because it seems that there's certain people in this culture, in this society, that have lost sight of how law governs the events of our everyday lives in business, in finance, and family, in spirituality, and, you know, in total application. So I just wanted to, you know, touch on this one book that we've been going over for a little while. You know, it's the Moorish Paradigm series. It's 13 issues, you know, chock full of knowledge on indigenous peoples, ancient ancestry, ancient artifacts, ancient ruins from the Olmec to the Taino, to the Arawak, to the Carib, you know, to the Malian Empire, all these peoples that so-called Black Americans come from. So in 2026, if we're calling ourselves African American, I would think Moorish American is just a lot more specific. You know, Greek Americans don't call themselves just European Americans. They know the region of Europe they're from. And we should start to learn and study the Moorish lineage, where the Moors came from. What were the tribes? What were the family names? What was the coat of arms? You know, you can study last names and it can take you down a rabbit hole. You know, we go down all these rabbit holes on YouTube on so many topics of so many other people's lives, athletes, you know, criminals, all these different stories that you can go through. But to study your family last name on your mother's side and your father's side, that's the rabbit hole I encourage every Moorish American, so-called Black American, to go through. Because slaves didn't have last names. And you know that myth where they try to say, you know, every slave owner may have put his name on, you know, his slaves. You know, that could be true in some instances, but a lot of us had names and knew and retained them and knew our family lineage despite enslavement. You know, that's the story that they don't tell. You know, these tribes, yeah, some tribes sold other tribes, but don't get it twisted that Europeans didn't know the gifts and the skills of the people they were so-called bringing over here. Now, you know, we can have a conversation about the numbers, because we all know that famous image that has people laying on a boat. It's actually a sketch. It shows people laying on a boat, packed like sardines. But in all actuality, we know 400 plus people couldn't fit on a boat packed like that and be healthy enough after a month's voyage. And, you know, I'm not one to say, you know, slavery didn't exist at all, and you know, I'm not here to say that, because there is evidence of that. But also, there's no slave ship museum in the same breath. In my studies as a scholar and a historian, you know, I've only seen, there's a location, I think it's in Alabama, where they've recovered an actual slave ship, and it wasn't as big as a cruise ship, which fits hundreds of people, and cruise ships are very modern. So the ships that these people were using, you know, could have fit maybe 100, 200 people. So, you know, it's about really studying American history. You know, we're in a time where everyone's angry about politics and rights. You know, so we have to stand on our rights, because we all have a right of a nationality and the right to claim it. We have the rights of indigenous people, but it's not about telling people who they're not. That's where a lot of our community has got lost in, trying to tell other people who they are not, while they're living a culture where there be people of Jewish descent, Ethiopian, Islamic. You know, you should be able to find, if you're really into your spiritual practices and education, you should be able to find a common ground. If you have a clear mind and a loving heart, you should be able to find common ground with anyone of any caste, creed, color, because you should have the light in you. You shouldn't want to have these splinter groups like we always talk about. We have all these smaller denominations and groups that have weakened our community. Point blank. You know, like, if we would unite in certain, you know, cities, certain regions, the powers that we have would be seen a lot faster. It wouldn't take decades. We wouldn't have to watch other cultures, other immigrants come to the Americas and, you know, start businesses, own plazas, own shopping centers. You know, where I live right now, I'm in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And in Virginia specifically, it's a haven for foreigners to come over, whether they have a food business, you know, because food and beverage is something we all need every day. No matter what your belief, your education, you need nourishment every day. And it's, you know, it's sad that a lot of the, you know, African American soul food mom and pop stores, you know, have disappeared, and they've been replaced by, you know, other cultures who have stepped up and started to market their culture whether it be food, whether it be dance, whether it be spirituality, whether it be fashion and clothing. These are all things that encompass culture. And sad to say, the Negro culture, Black culture was, somewhat manipulated and created as a result of pain, enslavement, and miseducation. And as we know, the book The Miseducation of the Negro, it's a powerful book, and we're still living the residuals of those times. And even back then, there was more unity. People say segregation was such a bad thing, but if you really look at it, that was a time where Black people, so-called Black people, had power. They had unity because they really had to rely on each other. They didn't have a European American to run to and work for. That wasn't an option. Now, today, fast forward to today, we see companies, Walmart, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. These are all European American owned, families and establishments who started from humble beginnings. And if you don't know, I'm in the herbal tea business. And I know one thing, when it comes to a product like a food or a herb, if you don't have a wholesale or a bulk plug or person you can go to, it's going to be very hard to sustain that business. And I see a lot of our people, we start food businesses, we start beverage businesses, we start all types of different businesses, but we're trying to do it all alone. And you can't grow something working alone. You can't bottle every drink by yourself. You can't make every platter by yourself and think that's going to grow. You have to have a team. That's what we have here at the Burning Bush Tabernacle. And we encourage brothers and sisters to latch on with us and tap in with us daily. Share your email, get our emails. We work out every weekend, every morning. We have book club on Fridays. We have adept classes on Saturdays. But before that, we work out. So, we encourage brothers to tap in with us. 11 a.m. with Malik Reed L, a great trainer who's had a health transformation in the short few years that I've even known him. Along with Sheik, Brian, Alonzo, we all have grown within the years of knowing each other. Started businesses, started brands, started families. And this is what more science can really do for you. It's not about expatriating from the government and all the sovereign citizen information that has been wrongly mixed into more science, because Noble Drew Ali was not a sovereign citizen. The entity he created was sovereign. And we are the people, we are the body to embody it and to continue it. This is not about a get out of jail free card. This isn't about not paying taxes. More science is simple. It's Sufism. It's understanding that God and man is one. It's living in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it's understanding history, your heritage. Like I said, going back to your last name. I really encourage brothers and sisters to just type in your last name onto Google or whatever search engine you use. Type in your last name and then put coat of arms. And once you start there, you're going to see whether your last name is Smith, Jones, Johnson. Every last name came from a coat of arms. And coat of arms are ancient and were created by melanated people who were travelers, people who were seafaring people who colonized, because Moorish people and African people did colonize places around the world. We weren't just sitting around in a utopia eating the finest foods and smoking hookah. I know Europeans romanticize the Moorish culture and idolize it, and that's what Masonry has done as well. They've preserved it. They're the custodians of it. They just do it behind closed doors. But it's a new day. You can proclaim your nationality proudly and wear your turban, wear your fez, wear your headdress proudly. And when someone asks you what it means, you should be able to express it with love, not get upset and angry and ask why someone's asking you a question, because your regalia, your wardrobe speaks for you without you even having to open your mouth. And that's another area that Europeans have compromised us. They got us wearing baseball caps and sports teams regalia. We get real. Seems like we just fall in love with sports teams memorabilia and regalia, but that sports team doesn't represent you. That logo probably doesn't represent you. It might be a team of your city. Nothing wrong with enjoying a sport. But at the end of the day, you have to sit under your own vine and fig tree. And that means understanding your culture, embracing it. All people were colonized. The first slaves were Slavic, Czechoslovakia. Moors aren't from Czechoslovakia. We weren't always the slave. We were just the last of recent. But that's why they did a number to disenfranchise you through names like Arab, like Berber, like Saracen. There's so many names that have displaced us from our history. You watch movies, you watch cartoon movies like Aladdin. Your children fall in love with these things. These things make millions and millions of dollars. These stories were based off Moorish tales. 40 Days and 40 Nights, the 40 Thieves. Like, these stories just didn't come from out of nowhere. And we have another book that talks about that. Let me see if I can find the name of it. But it just talks about how Europeans were enamored with Moorish culture. Certain people from Europe, they go to Morocco, they go to Senegal, they go to Mauritania. I've been to Mauritania. And Mauritania literally means town of the Moor. Moray, M-A-U-R. And there are many different ways to spell Moor, depending on the region of the world you're in. But if you don't study these things, you'll think when you read something on that topic, you'll think they're talking about some other type of people, and they're talking about your ancestors. So, when you study history and when you read and you watch films, you have to watch with a keen eye, and you have to have some substance of history besides Roots and Amistad, even though Amistad, was a true story. But when you watch these films, a film is for entertainment. A film is to show you the most exciting moments, the most emotional moments. It's not necessarily trying to be 100% historically accurate. So, I love to start with film. Film is a great place to start because it can inspire you to want to learn the deeper history of the characters. But you have to be careful because a lot of characters in films were just fabricated to make a better story, to get you to buy a ticket to watch the film. So you may watch a film and only 2 characters may have only been real. All the rest of them are just created to fill the story. But when you get these books that we have, these books have scholarly research, they cross-reference European scholars, African scholars, Barry Fell. This book right here specifically is Hakeem Bey, the European Hakeem Bey. A lot of people get Hakeem Bey confused with a Hakeem Bey who, was teaching in the modern time, but this Hakeem Bey was a European, and he started a Bohemian European Moorish brotherhood. And we see these things going on today. It's nothing to be upset about. We have to be the clean glass of water, as we say. When you set a clean glass of water next to a dirty one, you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell a person which one to drink. So as we continue to purify ourselves, purifying our minds, purify our hearts, purify our lungs, purify our pockets and finances. The purge starts with yourself. As we know, this is Ramadan time for all those Sunni and Shiite and Orthodox Muslims. This is a time for cleansing your mind, cleansing your body, cleansing your ears, And when you get clean, you don't put on dirty clothes. When you clean your body and clean your mind, you should put on clean regalia. You should put on the regalia that makes you proud to be who you are. And that's what Noble Drew Ali brought. That's what Sheikh Khari Goodman Bey has brought. And we provide through MoorishHaberdasher.com. So we really encourage y'all to tap in with us. We have books, we have fezzes, we have turbans, we have kufis, we have she-mags, we have pins, buttons, ties, suits. This crazy weather we're dealing with on the East Coast, you need to be ready. You need to have your turtlenecks, your suit pants, your jeans, whatever you need. And we provide that. We're not just telling you this and not bringing you a source to get it from. So like I said, MoorishHaberdasher.com. I really encourage you all to tap in with us. MoorishHaberdasher.com. It's so much that we offer with the Burning Bush Tabernacle. like I said, through fitness, through books, through regalia, through classes. You know, we're a one-stop shop. Marriage counseling, Sheik does. You know, he's helped so many nobles within the brotherhood and outside the brotherhood with their marriages. And that's one reason I love and respect everything Sheik's been doing with this, man, because, you know, the Empress, she's right by his side and supportive. And that speaks volumes more than any knowledge that could come out of someone's mouth. When you can see someone's spouse supporting them genuinely, not by force, not by conversion, not by any religious dogma, which a lot of brothers have done. And now our women have a bad taste in their mouth for brothers because they tried to do the same thing the European did, you know, using the patriarchy to subdue, to try to checkmate. And as we know, if any of y'all play a little chess, you know the king can only move one space in all directions, but the queen can move unlimited spaces in every direction. And we know the Moors created the game of chess. So I encourage everyone to, you know, understand that analogy. You know, you have to protect your Empress, and she will help you move to unlimited places you may never even have known you could even travel to. You know, this isn't about a bunch of men just getting together and pontificating. You know, we're about the families. We're about the children. We're about the elders. But the wellness, you know, the wellness has to start in the mind, in the heart, in the body. You know, this isn't something you're gonna find on, no matter how many YouTube channels you watch, no matter how many Instagram posts. Like, you have to, you know, lock in. And, you know, reading the Moorish Quran is a great start, because the Moorish Quran has a lot of wisdom within those 77 pages. Whether it's biblical knowledge for a husband and a wife, the duties, the history of the Asiatic man, our biblical lineage. You know, so this isn't about converting anyone or a belief system. You know, this is history, law, spirituality, nationality. And as we know, Negro was never a nationality. That's why all them brothers, rest their souls, from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King to Jesse Jackson, all these brothers knew when they went into that United Nations, and they may have not had a seat, that's probably when a lot of them felt some type of way, because they saw they had no flag, they had no divine creed. You know, these were the things that was stripped from us. You know, they always talk about the 3/5 of a man, and we were 3/5 of a man, but they never told you what those 2/5 that they took from you were. That was your divine creed and your nationality. And then they labeled you a Negro. And in our teachings, it says Negro, you know, stems from the word necro, which means dead or death. So, you know, this isn't to upset anyone or challenge anyone, you know, but they put a lot of labels on us and brands. You know, as we know, whether you in a Greek fraternity, I have respect for all them brothers as well. But I've seen it with my own eyes in college. I've seen a brother get branded before. That ain't, I'd rather get a tattoo, honestly. It hurt a lot less, and it doesn't have an aroma. Animals get branded. So I mean, it's just, we have so many rituals and practices in the society that you really got to just step back and try to really understand what are they about? Where did they come from? Because everything has an origin, from clothing to fashion to, like I said, your last names. Our last names have origins, and there were different spellings of different last names. Like my last name, Moso. I've seen history where it's connected to the name Moss, Muso. It goes back to, I've seen it in Italian, but I know that there were Moors in Italy. I'm not looking at Italy like I want to be an Italian citizen, and, that's not how I'm looking at it. I understand that there were Moors in Italy, in Sicily. There were many different peoples that traveled, settled, and were the founders of many of those islands all around Europe. I understand the history of Hannibal. You think it was a coincidence they made a film called Hannibal, and then they made him a European who was a cannibal, and he was like a maniac. These characters. This is partly how Europeans saw the real Hannibal, because Hannibal was a warrior. He took out hundreds of thousands of Roman soldiers through his understanding on how to unite tribes of Africa and even the Europeans. And they have so many films on Hannibal. They whitewash him. And that's another character that they disenfranchise from our Moorish history, because we're not standing up and proclaiming this is our history. We're just happy with the Black Panther. I see people dressing up in Moorish regalia to go see a fictitious film called The Black Panther. And then the next day, you're not wearing that regalia. So are we dressing up in costumes? Are we celebrating our history like Halloween? Or are we truly understanding that this is our culture that we can celebrate every day of the week? And as we know, the fez or the turban doesn't make the man or woman. It's the man or woman underneath. It's the knowledge you have in your head and the understanding in your heart that really defines it. Because you could have nothing on your head. You could have no regalia, but your aura speaks for you. Your voice, your understanding, your ability to be able to walk into all different houses and all different rooms and all different religions. You shouldn't, I met a brother from the Nation of Islam the other day. I was cleaning my car, great brother. He gave me some wax for my car, So we started speaking. I saw he had some final calls in the back of his, thing. I asked him for one. Started dialoguing with the brother. We can't treat this like Bloods and Crips, as we say. We can't treat this like that. We are all one people. No matter how you practice it, if it makes you a better man, it makes you a better woman, keeps you from doing criminal activity, keeps you from going to jail. Because sadly, a lot of the brothers and sisters who get the most exposure on this information are people who grabbed a little bit of information in jail. You know, some of the grand sheiks and brothers I started in this knowledge with in the beginning were a product of that. And a lot of them look at Moorish science as strictly a religion. You know, it's a teaching that they do on the weekend. They may take their fez off and put it in a bag. They might not be wearing their fez and turbans to work. And that's not how this culture should be practiced. If other people can proclaim who they are and proclaim any gender they want, what is the difference between in that and us proclaiming who we are and that we have been mislabeled? I don't think that's an extreme. You know, more science isn't radical. More science isn't illegal. It isn't criminal, and it isn't radical. Every European I've ever spoke to and let know I was a Moor, they didn't try to challenge me and say, laugh at me or anything like that. Only our people do that. Only our people try to tell you ain't nobody and what are you talking about and what are you wearing, you know. That's the slave Negro mind they created. You know, Europeans, though they've been through slavery, they found love for each other, because there was a time where Europeans all didn't love each other. And I think even today, there's still Europeans who have grudges against each other. Yeah, but they all agreed to call themselves white men, because they knew by using this term white, that they could have a unity, they could have a commonality despite being Greek, Irish, Italian. You know, it's a great film I love called Gangs of New York. It shows that time period in the 1900s, which was not that long ago. Some of these different peoples were firemen. And at that time in the film, some of the firemen were corrupt. If your house was on fire, they didn't want to call the firemen, because the firemen ran in and took everything out the house. You know, it was a lot of criminal activity within society back in those times. You know, there was snake oil salesmen, just like today. There's scammers and snake oil salesmen today. You know, so history truly repeats itself, and the only way you know that is by studying it. You know, my background, I went to college for history, Delaware State University. I've traveled to South Africa, Southwest Africa, Namibia, Senegal, Mauritania. You know, I plan to go to a lot more places and go back to those lands, because we must unite, you know. I learned about Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, who was very similar to Noble Drew Ali, except Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba came for his people, in his land, in his language. You know, we're always looking outside of the country for our leaders, but Noble Drew Ali was born right here in America, North Carolina. You know, he didn't scam his people. He didn't sell them up the road and scam people for ID cards. And you know, he didn't. He was an honest brother. In my understanding of his history, that's why things went down with him the way it went down, because of jealousy. And you know, we're faced with those things today, but he created an organization, and we have an organization just as well, a nonprofit. The Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School is a religious nonprofit, scientific, educational, and that's why we can offer these books through PDF, through hard copy. You know, we have so many journal articles that some brothers would never have access to unless you went to college. Because journal articles, you have to be in a college database to access them, or have someone at a library who can access them for you. You can't just Google certain journal articles. You can't just chat GPT this information. I know today we live in a world of chat GPT and very quick information, but real history don't work like that. And travel is, in my experience, the cherry on top in terms of understanding. Because when you can go to countries and see, when I went to Senegal and you see brothers that look like your family, look like your friends, you can see the tribes that we were linked to, whether it be Yoruba, Mande, the Mali Empire, Ghana. I was talking to a brother today from Ghana. I was looking at him and I was just like, man, I had to ask him where he was from because he looked like so many brothers I know in the Americas. He said he was from Ghana, and I'm like, I guess he said he was Akan, the Akan people, AKAN. And you look at the Akan people and you tell me if they don't look like just like what you call a Black American. They're people who can look at you, look at your bone structure, look at your facial phenotype, and they know the tribal lineages you may be linked to. But it's on you and your family to understand these things. We were tricked in some instances because these blood tests that became popular. I did a blood test years ago, and it shows genetic markers of where your blood is linked to. It's not just one. A test cannot just tell you one place that you're linked to. But if you're trying to sell someone a package and a trip and experience, and they have no research and no knowledge of it, they're gonna sell you a dream. And yeah, you may be linked to those people, but you may have other peoples you're linked to. So I hope, I would hope people wouldn't spend so much money on asking these tough family questions to businesses and, people who may not have your best interests at heart. Because at the end of the day, you have to go through the oral tradition of your family. You have to go through the lineages of your last names, of your mother's side, or your father's side, your grandparents. This is how you learn history. All our families aren't the same. America is a big country. We got the North, we got the East, we got the South, we got the Midwest, we got the West, we have the adjoining islands. So I mean, it's a lot of history to understand before you just accept a narrative or a story. But like I'm saying, this book right here, Moorish Paradigm, the master issue. On the cover is Noble Drew Ali in his regalia, feather, turban, sash, left foot forward. And again, this is by Hakeem Bey. I want to go down to this is called My Eye, the Morisco. So the Morisco translates to the word little Moor. The Moriscos were Christianized Moors who stayed in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition, but they were subjugated. They were told what they could wear and could not wear, what they could eat, what they could not eat. They were basically enslaved in their own land of Al-Andalusia, Spain. This was a process that they did to our people. This wasn't just a couple months, and it just happened. Like, this was a decades of grooming, of pacifying, of castration, cultural castration, and physical castration. As I said, this Noble Drew Ali, born Timothy Drew in North Carolina, January 8th, 1886. As can be seen, he was a prophet from amongst us, homegrown, and not a foreigner speaking a foreign language. This movement was originally the Canaanite temple. And we know who the Canaanites were. We should know who the Canaanites were. Hannibal believed he was a descendant of the Canaanites. If you read any of his writings, because the Canaanites were linked to the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians created what? Phonics, language, the alphabet, because the Phoenicians were traders. Canaanites were trading. They were seafaring people. They had to have a common language to speak when they went to new places. They had to understand common words, certain vernacular. These men and women were linguists, multilingual, just like brothers and sisters are today. Speak Spanish, Latin, Greek, Arabic. It's the same thing. When you know many languages and you can pull certain words, that's what English is for us today. English borrows from so many other languages, whether it be French, German, Greek, Italian, Latin, all these other cultures make up the English language. Without them, it couldn't be an English. So for you to not know the history of those places and speak the modern language would be a disservice, and you'd be easily manipulated at some point. But the part I wanted to get to is all the way down. Give me a second. I said this is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. This is our authority, which is the back of the 101. This was nothing radical. This is a religious affidavit of organization, just like every religious group should have and can have in the Americas. Just like the KKK, they have one of these. That's why they have the Quran and we have the Koran. That's why the KKK can march and have celebrations, despite being a damn near a hate group in some forms. But they know the law, and they're following the law today. We know in the past they were doing all types of things. But I wanted to get down to a book that's actually in this book, because it's, give me a second. There we go. Right here. This is the good one right here. It says the following pictures below are from the book Unexpected Faces in Ancient America by Alexander von Woutenau. This is one of the source materials used by Ivan van Sertima in his book, Books on Our Heritage in the Americas. Unexpected Faces in Ancient America. And we offer this book. I can email you this book directly if you reach out to me, email me, DM me. We can easily get this book to you for a small fee. Because these are the type of topics we have to be talking about and cross-examining. This is the historical testimony of pre-Columbian artists. And it shows terracotta figures from Costa Rica, Veracruz. It says the Atlantes of North Africa, who gave their name to the Atlas Mountains. The Atlas Mountains are in Morocco, and I'm pretty sure span over to other countries. And these mountains, the Atlas Mountains, and whose descendants exist there as yet under the names Tuareg or Tuareg, the Berbers, Shelou, Shoia, etc., were one of the primitive nation of both continents. They came to America soon after the flood, if not before, colonized and named the ocean and the islands in it, as well as America, which was called the Great Atlantis. And this is in the Atlantic Journal by C.S. Rafinsky. On this other slide, it says their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across Great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and Atlantis Islands. Before the great earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. And this is sourced by the Holy Quran, chapter 47. And this one on the right's kind of funny because I've seen people compare this one to Lil Wayne, and he do kind of look like Lil Wayne. He even got tattoos on his face like Lil Wayne. If you look close at this image, make sure y'all can see it. This one right here on the right. This is a indigenous brother from Costa Rica. And it says, too many, this fact of old black nations in America will be new. It says, too many, this fact of the old black nations in America will be new, yet it is an important feature of American history. Yeah, it's very important because it's the missing pages of world history. And the other slide says, I had always believed that the Atlanteans of Africa have partly colonized America, as so many ancient writers have affirmed. This belief led me to search for any preserved fragments of the alphabets of Western Africa and Libya, the land of the African Atlantes, yet existing under the names of Berber, Tuareg, Shelous, etc. Note, the Moors never used the term Negro or black in reference to ourselves. If you see this term used anywhere in this journal, It is a direct quote of an author. Yeah, because the word Negro and Black cannot be retroactive. You can't put a word retroactively into a place, a time period where they didn't use the word. There's certain, words are birthed at certain time periods and they come into the lexicon. And the word more is the most ancient that our people use for themselves. And this is just showing, the Moors of the Olmec, the pre-classical, Teotihuacan, pottery head. Notice the large earrings and turban on her head on the left. Post-classic Moorish-looking heads, presumably executed by Mixtec artists in the region of Oaxaca. It looks very much like the Mohican effigy vessels from Peru. This one is a superb Moorish-looking clay sculpture from Veracruz, the classic period. Notice the turban with the pointed fez shown in previous issues and the scarification tattooing still practiced in Africa. And if you really look and study, like I said, coat of arms of different countries, especially in South America, you'll see the fez, or what they call the Liberty cap, always there. And why would they put something, a cap, on a flag or a coat of arms of a country? I always ask myself that. You see images of Honduras, you see a lot of Latin countries, a lot of South American countries have the Liberty cap, which is what this brother almost has on. It's like a fez, or it can be a soft fez. I'm pretty sure if you're on the sea with the fez on, it's going to get softened by cold water and moisture. So you'd have to protect it by wearing a turban, by wrapping it, by maybe getting it made out of a different, whatever materials they used in those times. They used to put shells on them, with so many different, our people had so many creative ways to adorn themselves. This was before you could just go to the store and get ink and clothing. You had to create these things from natural materials. So it's a really amazing thing that our people adorn themselves in such a way, But I'm not gonna. We've been going for about an hour almost. I really encourage brothers and sisters to reach out if they want this book. Learn more about the Kemetic, Egyptian, and Phoenician and Babylonian, artifacts in Ecuador. And we know what this looks like. You can see this similar image in many cultures. The anthropomorphic image of whether it be a hawk or a falcon with the body of a man. This image has so much symbolism. He has a bag in his hand. He got something hanging from his tassels, hanging from his garb. He got wings. Like what, these images should be studied by our people. They should be examined. There should be classes on this. There should be scholarly studies. These shouldn't just be books that people talk about on the internet, because they're not. Europeans are talking about these in colleges and universities, and they're going to these lands and doing research. And that's what we do as well. It says this is another presumed Cypriot Phoenician reproduction of Babylonian religious artifacts for sale to barbarian peoples by Carthaginian traders, found in Ecuador and now in the Crespi collection at Santa Maria Auxadore. So, it's so much evidence of our great lineage that goes so beyond enslavement, so beyond modern America, that it's really a disservice. It's truly a disservice not to study it, to study Morocco, study Algeria, study Tripoli. Morocco is just west of Egypt. Our ancestors traveled in caravans with camels, with horses, we had survival skills. So brothers was traveling. Brothers was nomadic. So this is a topic that you could spend a lifetime studying and you wouldn't even scratch the surface. So I really encourage brothers to get with the Burning Bush Tabernacle, study with us, get books, ask questions, share your email. You can email us. This is my email, herbsofmayat. Herbsofmayat at herbsofmayat.com is my email. Reach out to us during our live classes, BBT Science Temple. Because we're not stopping with this education and this understanding. We don't know it all. But we do have a plethora, a library of 1 million books or more. These books are a great base to build your understanding, build your library, and educate yourself, your family, your children. This isn't about teaching strangers on the internet. At the end of the day, this is about teaching your family, teaching your loved ones, teaching your friends that care that there's real history out here beyond enslavement, and that you can live today through proclaiming your nationality, adding your El, Bey, or Ali, correcting the misspelling. This is not a radical thing. This is not criminal. This is not changing your entire name. A lot of brothers have got it incorrect by changing their family name. Your family name is your coat of arms. So for you to just change it and create a new name, yeah, it might sound good, but I've been there too. It doesn't. It's not worth it. At the end of the day, it ain't worth it, because you're not building. You're trying to create something new, but you already here. Your family already here. Your mother gave you a last name. Your father has a last name. So honor that, and let them know that you've added the L or the Bey. You know, I used to explain that to my father. You know, you have to, you know, in Spanish, the word El goes in front of the name usually. So it shouldn't be that radical to put it at the end of your name. We're not using El like it's the. You know, El comes from ancient people, ancient tribes. Bay comes from ancient people, ancient tribes. These are names that we used. Just like a European who uses a title of his bloodline. You know, you have to know the origins. Because today we're wrapped up in a world where people are watching a lot of shows about the old world, about royal times and Europe, and they even have a show about Queen Charlotte, who we know was a melanated Moorish sister. But they're not gonna flat out say it like that. But you have to watch these shows and watch this historical content with a sharp eye. And that should inspire you to want to know more, want to research more. Not through hate, you know, just for understanding. You know, nobody hoodwinks you. No one's hiding this information. You know, like I said, you can go to journal articles. If you're in university or college, you know, you have access to a plethora of journal articles, and as Sheik always says, royal libraries. So, I mean, I think a lot of this knowledge that we study, you know, we're going to be taking this to the universities in Africa, in Europe. Because these brothers they'll be happy to see that we've woken up. I can't wait to go back to Africa already with my Moorish regalia on. And then when I get over there, they'll see that we already on. We already know what time it is, as they say. We know what time it is. We're not. We're comfortable. We're comfortable relearning our culture, and that's what I think the issue is. A lot of our people, pride. They don't want to relearn the culture. They want to study those languages. We don't want to, you know. But we go to school for so many other things, and we pay universities for schooling and to be nurses, to be doctors, and nothing's wrong with that. But you have to study. I would encourage people to study both sides. Because as we know, there was no hospitals before there was nature and herbs and plants and products from the ocean, even animal products. You know, our people used the buffalo for everything. The European knew that the buffalo was good meat, good food. We used the bones, we used the hide. You know, every piece of the animal was used and not wasted. So I mean, it's just understanding the ingenuity of our people. And we've been great for a long time. This is not to say we're trying to say we're better than anyone, but the Moorish history and legacy is something to be proud of. It's something to study and get a full understanding on. Because at those time periods, people were Islamic, they were Hebrew, they were Christian. You know, they had animist religions and so many other beliefs. And people lived in harmony despite certain things. You know, I wouldn't say any time period would be no time period was a utopia, because of once Europeans started interacting with African people, you know, they A lot of Europeans countries had nothing. That's why they left them. A lot of Europeans left their countries to never return. That's why they colonized so many places and settled in so many lands, is because their land didn't have much. And our ancestors in certain places, being giving people and being loving people, they opened their doors to certain European cultures. And sometimes that was a detriment. But like I said, we've been going for about an hour, man. Appreciate everybody jumping on. Love some comments. Gratitude sheet. Check us out tomorrow. Working out, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And we got Adept class after that. bbtsciencetemple.com. BBT Book Club. You know, I really encourage y'all to tap in with this, man. Email us. Reach out to us. Let us know what you need. Like I said, we have books. We have clothing. We have workout classes. You know, we do one-on-ones. We do private classes. We do finance. We have business classes. You know, we're a one-stop shop. So again, I appreciate everybody tapping in. If you're looking for any herbal remedies, herbal teas, if you're in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, reach out to me. If you're looking for any stretch therapy, you know, I do stretch therapy as well in the Riverdale, Maryland area, where my office and studio is. So, you know, you could tap in with me directly if you're in the East Coast. You know, we're a real organization. Burning Bush Tabernacle. You know, this is my email. For any books, herbal teas, merch, you can email me at mayatsons@gmail.com or Herbs of Mayat. Mayat Sons on Instagram. You can follow me and find me. And again, just tap in with us. Gratitude for everybody tapping in. I'm going to end it with the prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is our protector, our guide, and our salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Shalom Aleichem, Ayah Asher Ayah, Islamism. Peace, 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 peace. Peace, love, and light, y'all. Have a great Holy Friday. See y'all tomorrow for the workout and book club. And tap in with us on Sunday school and workout. Peace, love, and light.
I'm a spirit speaking, truth seeking, heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seed sowing, harvest reaping, man of meager meaning. I have yet.
mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z.
Once again, this broadcast has been brought to you by mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z, where reading fundamental. Also brought to you by bindedbooks.com, where treasures are bound. Be sure to get all of your teas at Mayat Sons Teas, the tea of teas, divinely prepared at herbsofmayat.com. Be sure to check out all of those musical stylings by Brian Hicks Spade at bhspademusic.com. For your everyday items and religious regalia, be sure to check out morrishaberdasher.com. And for that everyday especial Morris drip, be sure to check out morsachi.com. And all of these companies are powered by ALO Design Pros. Design your online business strategy today.
No such thing as failure, baby, don't forget who made you. You can't be thinking minor when you need to be thinking major. They made you think they saved you, but can't nobody save you. And